my name is Kayla. I go to Pacific Lutheran University, and I'm the Pierce and South Regional Coordinator for WA-SEN. And I am happy to introduce our first guest speaker, Kwabi Amoah-Forson, who is a local humanitarian within Tacoma. Through different humanitarian campaigns, he has helped others in the community and has worked to educate on what peace really means by creating dialogue and discussing this through work that he's done in the Peace Bus. Today he'll be covering his own personal story of becoming a humanitarian and the importance of putting your dreams into action. He will talk about his interactions with various politicians and his most recent campaign, Manifest Humanity. I hope he'll be talking a little bit about that because that was really exciting. And fundamental piece of Kwabi's peace efforts has been calling for quality education for all children, and he hopes to spark discussion within students about why this is so important to accomplish. A fun fact about Kwabi is he's actually creating a kids TV show right now. So keep your eyes open for that. His favorite book from childhood is The War of the Worlds, and his mornings are fueled by thoughts of hope.
Great. WA-SEN, oh my gosh. If I had a hat, I'd be tipping it off to you guys. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here, to present, and to be in the midst of so much greatness. There is nothing better than having young folks come together to promote positive change. You guys are doing that here. You know, the people create the atmosphere for change, and the politicians and those that are in legislation, they follow our lead. So the fact that you guys are taking upon this endeavor of leading through the government, through getting involved, this is absolutely everything. Thank you for the work that you guys are doing. Thank you so much. It really touches my heart. But I do want to explain about what I'm doing, the Peace Bus, this whole thing. It's quite extensive, so I'm going to try to condense it in this 30 minutes I have. My name is Kwabi, as was explained before, and I am the owner and founder of the Peace Bus. It's an actual bus. It's a Mitsubishi 1988 van. It's baby blue. If you go on Google and type in the Peace Bus, it will shine. It will be there up on your screen. It's a local humanitarian aid organization, right? So I go out the community and different parts of the country, giving. I'm in the business of giving things out for free, helping people in need, families, children, and adults alike, everybody. How can I go about serving and helping the community, right? But it just didn't start with just a bus, right? There was a lot of things that went into the pot before the meal got cooking, right? So in 2017, I was in college. Like many of you guys here are in college right now. You're doing your work, you're doing what you need to do in order to get to where you need to be. And I was doing the same thing. I was in grad school for business, and I was there and I was feeling unfulfilled. Still that I was in college, right? The place that I needed to be, I was still feeling like, I don't know why I'm here, right? And I did something that a lot of people don't do nowadays. I don't know if it's because young folks were kind of stubborn, but I reached out to an elder in the community for guidance. Something as simple as that. Someone who was older than me that knew more than me, right? So I humbled myself, reached out to an old academic advisor of mine named Peter Baccio at the Evergreen State College. I reached out to him and I was like, Dr. Baccio, I'm struggling. I'm in college. Why am I here? I don't know what I'm doing. And he said, Kwabi, hold on. He said, you know, you could be a lot of things in life. You could be a doctor, a lawyer, a sailor, I don't know, a lot of different things. But you need to ask yourself, who do you want to be, not what do you want to be? And I was like, whoa, that is very powerful, you know? So he said, you know, figure that out first. Everything will follow after. So I did. I got by myself, maybe took a weekend or so, and I thought, well, at the core of myself, the thing I love seeing the absolute most in life is seeing people from different walks, different colors and creeds, races and religions, genders, coming together for a positive cause, It gives me goosebumps to see this happening in real life. It really fuels my soul. And to me, I thought that's peace. From an interpersonal perspective, right? That's what peace is. And that's when I really started diving into this essence of peace and peace advocacy. You know, we know of Martin Luther King, we know of Gandhi, these great people of the past who are monumental. But I was also concerned of who's doing this now. Like, what does this movement look like in our present day and age? And I came across this guy named Brian Haw. Brian, H-A-W. If you guys don't know the gentleman, you need to look him up. He's fantastic, right? He was a peace campaigner from London, England. He camped outside of Parliament Square in London for 11 years with a peace campaign, talking about love, compassion, and how we're equal based off our humanity. Absolutely wonderful speaker, absolutely wonderful gentleman. Please check out his videos on YouTube. And I was like, whoa, this guy's camping out for 11 years. He ended up even dying out there. And I'm like, well, the least I can do is go to my local park, right, every week, have some peace posters, talk to people about peace. And so that's what I started doing in 2017. I had 2 posters. One said love, peace, and justice for all. The other one said war is not the answer, say no to violence. And I went out to the park, right? People would come up to me in the park and they say, well, what are you selling? And I'm like, oh, I'm not selling anything. I'm here to have a conversation with you about peace. And they're like, is this religious? And I was like, no. I mean, unless you want it to be. Like, I'm just here to understand what does peace mean to you, to create an overall consensus of this idea that we all want. If you talk to anyone on the street, you ask them what they want out of life. Peace is going to be on the top 3. That being the case, why don't we talk about it more? So having this dialogue with everyday people, they come to my booth, and eventually I was adding to the atmosphere of this park. People would come and they'd be like, oh, that's the peace guy. And so I was doing that for a while, and then I was attacked one Saturday. Some gentleman who was mentally disturbed, he came up to me, started swinging, broke my posters and my table. And I didn't respond abrasively, right? So I think something clicked in his brain like, oh, this dude's not gonna fight me. So he just ran off, right? So the next Saturday, needless to say, I was paranoid. I was like, is this guy gonna come out the cuts and come swing at me? So it was a bad incident, but it was a good incident in the sense that it compelled me to travel. I didn't stay just at the park. I went to different parts of Tacoma. Oh yeah, I'm from Tacoma. So I went to different parts of Tacoma. And then I went to Seattle, and then I went to Vancouver, BC with my posters. And then I went to San Francisco. And then I had a friend who was stationed in the Netherlands in Europe. He was like, Kwab, why don't you come all the way to Europe and bring your posters? So I took my posters to Europe, and I traveled all throughout Europe with my posters, talking to everyday people about what peace meant to them. Sometimes having to, help with translation because, I don't know German. But it was actually fantastic. It was fantastic. And I came home. And I'm always doing research, you guys, always doing research about the peace movement, people involved and whatnot. And I came across this guy named A.B. Nathan. Is anyone here? Well, I guess you guys can't speak right now, but I hope if you don't know who A.B. Nathan is, you check him out. That's A-B-I-E-N-A-T-H-A-N. Phenomenal humanitarian from Israel. And he was a peace pilot. He flew a plane called the Peace One from Tel Aviv all the way to Egypt to promote better relations between Arabs and Jews, 2 factions of people who have been at odds for quite some time now. And his whole purpose was to get people from opposite sides of the spectrum of any sort of political issue or social issue in the same space. How can we go about having conversations of coming together if we don't actually get together? So I fell in love with this guy's concept, and I was like, oh my God, I gotta start flying planes. And so I had this crazy idea of being a peace pilot. I started taking flight lessons in 2017. And I told all my instructors, I want to be a peace pilot. I don't want to fly for the airlines. They thought it was absolutely insane. But, there was a lot of smiles during this time. And I did that till I became broke. So I was a college student, didn't have a lot of money, did maybe like 7 lessons, then call it a day. But I thought, well, I don't have a pilot's license, but I do have a driver's license. And that's how the Peace Bus was born. I was like, I can't get a peace plane right now. I'll put that on the back burner, but I still want to promote peace. And so I thought, well, let me get a vehicle to promote peace in my community. And I bought this Mitsubishi 1988 van from this guy named Jason on Bassan Island here in the Tacoma area. Jason's awesome. Kudos to Jason, that's my guy. And I told him I want to buy a vehicle just to promote peace. He thought he was all down for it. So he sold it to me. I used my income tax in order to buy the bus, $3,200. And I got it painted baby blue, right? Bright and vibrant so that people would see it. It would jar the attention of someone. And maybe, just maybe, seeing the peace bus, they would think about peace for a moment, or maybe a day, or maybe even better yet, it would compel them to live a more peaceful life. And I started just driving it around the community. And then I realized in the peace bus, there's a large gaping space where there's supposed to be seats, but there's nothing, right? And so I thought, well, why can't, if I'm going to talk about peace, why not put it into action, like tangibly? And so I started delivering things in the peace bus. And that's when it became a local humanitarian aid organization. My first campaign was a sock drive, something small, $500, right? Nothing too big. Went to Costco here in Tacoma, got $500 worth of socks, nice thick ones, right? For people on the street, we want to make sure that they can reuse them. And I went out to all the different shelters, people on the street giving out these socks. Now, a testament to this work, right? So I was at a shelter, gave out a few socks, didn't think anything of it. A year later, I went to the same shelter, was giving out food. And I was talking to one of the gentlemen, just talking about some of the resources I'm giving. We're out on the smoke deck. It's where a lot of people congregate and hang out. And another gentleman comes out and is headed towards the smoke deck. And he's just dirty, like head to toe, just dirt. Maybe he was rolling in mud. I don't know. He was just really dirty. And his clothes were really small on him, really tight on him. And as he sits down, his pant legs rise up and his socks are pearly white. And they're so white that like, it jars the conversation. Like I end this conversation with this gentleman, I turn to him and I'm like, you got some nice socks, man. And he's like, yeah, a year ago you came with that blue bus and you gave them to me. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, man, they're the best socks I ever had. And that's when I had to take a step back and I was like, the impact. Socks, we take it for granted every day. I put on socks, I don't think anything of it. But isn't it nice to have some clean, warm socks? Isn't that a need that I feel like everyone deserves? And this gentleman, he took care of them, you know? It's just a really big moment that stood out to me. So furthermore, it's very important, even the smallest task of giving can have a large impact with someone else. So then, I don't know if you guys remember, I'm sure you do, but in 2019, I believe it was 19, there's a lot in the media about the immigration crisis, right? It's still going on today. We were seeing in the media, kids being taken away from families, people in cages, like what is going on? So I had this crazy idea, because it was interesting because CNN was saying this, Fox News was saying that. I wasn't really sure what was going on. I wanted to see for myself, talk to the San Diego Border Patrol about what's going on to get a great depiction on what's going on. So I had this crazy idea of taking the peace bus, a small crew, and traveling down to the border of Mexico to interview San Diego Border Patrol, which is absolutely insane. Why did I think I could do this? I don't know. I called San Diego Border Patrol and I was like, hey, my name's Kwabi. I got this peace bus down here in Tacoma. I want to come and interview you guys about the crisis. They were like, no, you're not even a news station. And I was like, yeah, you're right, I'm not. And they basically hung up on me, right? But I was stubborn. And I was like, I'm going to go anyway. So I put on social media this crazy campaign of trying to meet with San Diego Border Patrol. And along the way, I'd be traveling through the coast, the West Coast, giving out tons of socks and blankets to the homeless, right? And after a while, it started generating a buzz. The Tacoma News Tribune reached out to me, said they wanted to interview me. I got on King 5 News to talk about this crazy excursion that I wanted to do. And sure enough, after a while, I realized with the funds, I was going to be able to do it. And so me and my crew, it was about 3 of us, we traveled down through the coast, stayed with host families, people who were just fans of this endeavor of peace. And we eventually made it to the border of Mexico. But before then, when we landed in LA, we were staying with the host family there. My buddy Kevin was like, you should call San Diego Border Patrol. We're already down out their back door just to see what they have to say. So I called San Diego Border Patrol again in LA and I was like, hey, it's Kwabi again. I got my peace bus. We're actually in LA. Can we interview you? And they're like, sir, you sound like you have good intentions, but we're getting too much heat right now. The media has been, hitting down our doorstep. We don't feel comfortable explaining what's going on down here. And I was like, fair enough. And they're like, you have a peace bus? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, well, send us your website. We'll take a look at it. And I was like, all right, cool. So I send the website, we hang up. An hour later, they call back and they're like, the guys here at the station, they want to see the bus. It looks really cool. I was like, yeah. So then I drove down to San Diego, went to the San Diego Border Patrol headquarters. 2 officers come out and they're like, where's the bus? And I was like, oh, it's right here. So they're looking at the bus. They're like, this is really cool. Why'd you guys come down here? And I was like, I came down here to interview you guys about the crisis. And they looked at each other. They said, well, no interview, but we'll let you guys ride on patrol with us. So we get in their patrol car, right? Like what? We get in the patrol car and we're riding on the border of Mexico. The fence is right there. And I just had an idea of just asking them if I could interview them again. And they said, you guys seem like some really cool gentlemen. We'll answer your questions. If there's questions we don't want to answer, don't harp on it with us. Just let it be and respect our space and our time. And I said, great. And I turned on record, started asking the questions. They said, and just one takeaway, because we asked them a bunch of questions, I would say that one takeaway that wasn't explained in the media at that particular point in time was that the biggest thing is it was a humanitarian aid crisis for those coming up from the border. Very seldom did they run into anyone who was promoting crime or any sort of violence. It was a great need of help, resources of food, clothes, and shelter. These sort of things that are essential for all humanity to have was what the crisis really was. So I put these interviews on social media. When I got back home, the news was like, how did you do this? What was the whole mission about? I got on some of the news stations. I got on, New Day with Margaret Larson to talk about this sort of thing that happened. But I used the publicity in order to reach out to schools in my community, to talk to the kids about nonviolence, about peace. What does it mean to show kindness? These sort of things, basic principles, I feel. And I had this thing called the Peace Ball. I don't have it with me today. I have one that I'm making. But basically, it's a beach ball. You guys see this? Right? So I have another beach ball that's like that, but it's a peace ball. On every panel has a question to do with peace, and we pass around the classroom, and soon enough, the class is having a conversation about peace. So I was doing this for a while, and one of the news stations reached out to me, and they're like, hey, we see that you're going to elementary schools. Looks really great. Have you thought about the Peace Bus being like a show? And I was like, no. And they're like, well, if you come up with something, let us know. We'll help you back it. And I was like, that sounds great. And I never did any sort of writing with television. Like, what do I know about television? But I wrote a script, right? I thought it was pretty good. And I pitched it to one of my friends who's a director. I was that friend, you got friends in high places and you're like, hey, I wrote this thing. Can you look at it? But I was that guy. And he looked over it and he was like, yeah, this is really good. And so he said he would like to direct it. I started getting film crews together. I don't know what I was doing. I just was shooting from the hip, got everyone together, and we started filming a pilot episode of this thing called the Peace Bus. And we filmed the pilot episode in its entirety. It was fantastic. Folks at home, you guys here, if you want to check it out on YouTube, just type in the Peace Bus TV show. The pilot episode will show up. It's 30 minutes, good stuff. Let me know what you think. And we're gonna have the premiere of the show here in Tacoma at the Blue Mouse Theater. Invite the community to come out, see it for free, right? Just a peaceful evening, give out t-shirts and stuff. And that's when COVID hit. That's when COVID hit, 2020. And I said, well, we have to cancel everything. So we canceled it all, right? We want to make sure that kids are safe, first and foremost. But I was still trying to figure out how can I serve? It doesn't stop here. Peace doesn't stop. Just because, we have a pandemic, peace has to keep on going. And so I thought, well, what if I could use the Peace Bus to deliver food, right? I was seeing in the News Tribune, I was reading this article talking about how schools were closing down and consequently they weren't able to deliver food, right? Yes, they had designated areas where kids and families could come get the food, but what about kids and what about families who don't drive? How are they supposed to get food? And I thought, well, I'm not a restaurant. I don't have the permits to deliver spaghetti, right? But I can deliver non-perishable items like cereal. And that's when I invented this, the Peace Bus Breakfast Fund. And from March till July, every morning during the hours of the milkman, I would go out and I would deliver cereal to the families of Tacoma. They would be able to text me a number or text me and be like, hey, I live at this place, or can you meet me here? And I would get there and meet with them and give their family cereal. So that was really cool. I'd even, in the mornings, I would listen to music. I would do some lip syncing videos and act like I was singing. It was wild. It was a great time though. And then that brings me to the fall. So that summer was difficult. As you guys know, in 2020, we were dealing with COVID, also with the killing of George Floyd. It was some very tumultuous times. I was asked to get on King 5 News to talk about what I believe in response to George Floyd being assassinated, essentially. Where do we go from here? And we can talk about that on a later date. I have a lot more to go through. So, but if anyone at any time wants to talk to me about peace and my ideas towards it, feel free to message me on Instagram at the Peace Bus. Follow me, and if you send me a message, I will get back to you. We can talk. So that brings me to the fall of 2020. Everyone was distraught, hard times. People were losing their jobs. There was an economic downturn. And I thought, well, these families are getting hit hard. What a joyful thing it could be to be Santa Claus for the city of Tacoma. So I invited the kids of Tacoma on November 1st to send me letters about love and peace, what they've done for their families and friends, to show that. And they could ask me for a gift, $50 and under, whatever it was, and I'd get it to them. And on Christmas night, I would dress up like Santa Claus and my friends would be elves, and we would deliver these presents to them. So I got hundreds of letters all across the city. And we delivered on Christmas night over 350 presents to kids. Or no, rather, there was way more presents than that. 350 families in the area. There was a girl who wanted a hamster even. So I went out to Petco, got her a hamster, showed up at her doorstep with the hamster. She was crying. She was like, what's the hamster's name? I was like, I don't know, what's your hamster? It was really great to do that campaign. And that brings me to our current campaign. Or I guess it's over, but the latest campaign with the Peace Bus was called Manifest Humanity. As you all know, these have been some very tough times. We've seen a direct polarization of the political spectrum, right? There hasn't been a lot of leeway in the essence of togetherness, really. In that space, I was thinking, well, what can I do, right? And I thought, well, what are some things we can rally around in this essence of peace? And I thought, it doesn't seem as if it's a controversial idea of poverty. We all, no matter if you're Democrat, Republican, we all want poverty to be diminished in some fashion. It's not a good thing, right? We want quality education for all our children, no matter what race, color, and creed, economic status. Every kid should have a means towards quality education. It just seems simple to me. And then also racism. Racism must be addressed in order for us to move forward in peace together. And so these ideas started cultivating in my brain. And I thought, well, what if I could meet with the president of the United States of America to have the most important discussion about peace? Because in my estimation, there's nothing more important, right? So I had this idea of traveling all across the country with my Peace Bus to Biden to have this discussion. And I thought, well, that's not enough. The Peace Bus is humanitarian aid. We got to do some sort of giving aspect. And I woke up one day thinking about Johnny Appleseed. You guys know about John? Well, hold on. Let me check my time. Oh, I only got 5 minutes left. Oh my God. Okay. So basically, with Johnny Appleseed, he gave out. He was planting apple seeds all over the Midwest, right? And consequently, in the Midwest, there's tons of apple trees. Well, why can't we do the same thing about peace? And so I thought the idea of delivering hundreds of books about love, peace, and understanding the kids all over the country. This is just a few. I don't know if you guys can see this. It says Peace is an Offering. This is my favorite book on my peace reading list. It's comprised of 40 books that I gave out across the country. This one too, the Peace book. But I also had books for adults too. Young adults and teens. This is one of the adult books here. Is Peace by Barry Miles. Really good book. And so I did that. I traveled across the country, went to major cities around the US, and I gave out these books to kids. I stopped in cities and gave speeches as well. Now, I didn't get to meet with Biden, but the simple fact that one kid got one book and it compelled this person to think of a life in a different way, how we could come together as one, that means that it was a success. And we gave out hundreds of these books. I was able to give a speech in New York, felt like it resonated well with people. Went to many boys and girls clubs across the country. Yeah, it was fantastic. And that brings me to right now. I came home about 2 months ago. And since then, I've been doing speaking engagements as this is right now. And it's been a pleasure to speak with you all. If you have any questions, feel free to message me on Instagram and follow me. And yeah, I love talking about peace. So this was awesome. Thank you.